if you read Rich Dad, Poor Dad, my rich dad refused to pay me. He said the paycheck was one of the most damaging things you could take in your life. He says the moment you take a paycheck, you're an employee, and that's the mindset. In every one of us is a poor person. There's still a poor person inside me. And I still go to the supermarket and say, oh, Crest is on sale or Colgate's on sale. There's also a middle class person, and the middle class person wants security. They want that steady paycheck. And that is a rich person. And they're all inside of us, except that it's not taught. You're taught to go to school, get a job, and get a paycheck. You're not taught how to get rich. Naturally, they have this idea that if you're not successful in school, you'll never be successful in life. When you were in school, were you an A student or a C student? And if you weren't the A student, then did that mean you couldn't be successful? You know, school damaged my brain, and my father was the head of education for the state of Hawaii, and I hated school.
When I was 9 years old, talking to my fourth grade teacher, I said, you know, when am I going to learn about money? She says, we don't teach money at school. And then I got curious. I said, why don't we learn about money? She says, go ask your father. He's my boss. I go home and ask him. I said, why don't we learn about money in school? And he looked at me and said, because the government doesn't let us teach that. And I thought that was strange. And I said, but aren't we going to school to learn about money? He says, no, your job is to get a job. And I went, isn't the purpose of a job to earn money? He goes, you're correct. I said, so why don't I just learn about money? I can skip the job part, you know? He says, if you want to learn about money, why don't you ask your best friend's father about money? Mike's father is an entrepreneur. And I said, what are you? He says, I'm an employee. I'm a government employee. And I went, what's the difference? He says, the difference is an entrepreneur must know about money. And he says an employee doesn't have to know anything about money, because the government will take care of them, the company will take care of them. So I'm all confused. But I took my dad's advice and I trundled over to Mike's father's, knocked on his door, and I said, hey, I'm here. Teach me about money. He says, beat it, kid, you know. But that's where the story of Rich Dad, Poor Dad started. And finally, through persistence, my rich dad started teaching me about money on one condition. And that condition was he would never pay me. He says, you never want a paycheck. You understand that, kid? I said, okay, I got it. And he said, well, how do I make money? He says, that's what entrepreneurs figure out. And he would teach me about money. But the way he taught me about money was playing Monopoly. And finally, one day I got upset. I said, well, when are you going to teach me about money? He says, what do you think we're doing? We're playing Monopoly. He goes, no. I'm teaching you about money. One of the greatest ways to acquire great wealth is playing Monopoly in real life. 4 greenhouses, 1 red hotel. Well, is that all there is? He goes, that's it. So then he took me out, he showed me his greenhouses. And 10 years later, when Rich Dad had bought the biggest piece of land, you'll see the Hyatt Regency Hotel, and it just sold for $800 million. One of my best teachers was R. Buckminster Fuller, and created the geodesic dome and all that. Yeah. And he was kind of the guy that straightened me out spiritually. And he always talked about generalized principles, and these are principles that are always true, no exceptions. So if you drop a stone in the water, the ripple always goes out this way. It's called precession. He says, there's no exception. I realized I had a social responsibility to speak out. But anyway, I wrote Rich Dad, Poor Dad because I could see this crisis coming. A lot of the predictions I've made are now coming true. Too many people look at, well, what's going to happen to me? When you look at the big picture, you're also going to know that when something bad happens, something good's going to happen. But you got to prepare for whatever is coming. You know, when you and I go to the supermarket and we buy a carton of milk, we always check for the expiration date. But most people do not check for the expiration date on their brains. The same thing happens inside our brains. Is when we have obsolete ideas, we get obsolete results. So that's why lesson number 1 at Rich Dad, Poor Dad is the rich don't work for money. What we do instead is we create businesses as entrepreneurs. So the reason is because as entrepreneurs, I have more control over my income, how much I make, and how much I pay in taxes. I was going for my MBA. I had to drop out because it was getting pretty ridiculous because the professor of economics said, you don't know what you're talking about. And you don't get good grades. You don't get good grades, you're out, right? So I decided, well, I'll avoid the rush and resign now. But what they teach you in school is BS. It's watered down. It's good if you're going to be an academic like my poor dad, and you have all the facts and figures, but they can't do anything. You know, Einstein said, you know, imagination is more important than knowledge, but knowledge empowers imagination. And what most people lack is real business knowledge, like accounting. You gotta know that stuff, but they don't teach it in school. And then when people ask me, how did your rich dad learn this? when your poor dad, a PhD, didn't? And the answer is very simply, my rich dad, who's my best friend's father, his father died when he was 13. So rich dad had this family business at 13 to run. So he had to drop out of school, and then his teachers became his bookkeeper, his accountant, his attorney, his banker, his real estate agents. So he has what I call real teachers. You see, most teachers in school, they teach subjects they themselves don't practice.
I make a lot of money, but I give a lot. It goes to biblical principle, the more you give, the more you receive. So a lot of times there's people who would like more, but they're not giving anything. Yeah. So they're like my poor dad. He belonged to the labor unions, and he wanted to work less and get paid more. Well, that's anti-religious to me. Yeah. If you want to get paid more, work more, give more. There's no such thing as a bad economy. You and I, we all have an external economy, but we also have an internal economy. Mm-hmm. And the willpower is to change our internal economy. I can see the good and I can see the bad. I don't really give a damn because I'm going to be rich anyway.
And what Fuller says, the only way humans evolve is via emergence. And the average person, the reason they're poor is they haven't failed. A baby learns to walk by standing up and falling down, standing up and falling down. And our school system punishes you for making mistakes.
So the real entrepreneur has an internal focus, that if they fall down, they say, oh, this is good because I'm going to go up higher. Entrepreneurs have one thing in common. They keep going. They'll change the rules. They'll reinvent the rules. Mm-hmm. They don't just take one answer. It's just a mindset. You mess with me, I'll find a way around it. My last paycheck, I still remember it clearly. You know what I mean? So I was excited, but I was also disturbed. And so this other guy comes up to me, his name was John, says, you're going to be back. I said, why? He says, because you're going to fail. I looked at him and said, look, you failed and you came back, but I'm going to fail and I'm never coming back. I had no money for years. When you don't have this paycheck, you get hungrier, smarter, and it's a test of your character. Will you become a crook? Will you become dishonest? Will you cheat and steal? Or will you become a better human being?
My success comes from spirituality. It's in their words, and the words become flesh. They become what they say. Poor people say, I can't afford it, I can't do that, I don't have time, because it's an escape. You know what I mean? It's easy to say, I can't afford it. Oh, I'm too tired. Oh, I can't go to the gym. But the thing is that we become creatures of our own habits. And until we break the habit, we don't change.
So the entrepreneur is not so much the business. The entrepreneur is really the mindset and the skill sets and the different set of rules. Desire and ambition.
Sure.
That's what it takes.
Sure.
That's why I say everybody can open a lemonade stand, but very few can be a rich one.